Hello, this is David James in Pueblo, Colorado. Today I'm going to talk about suicide. I'm sure a lot of you know somebody that has killed themselves or tried to kill themselves. I tried to kill myself on April 12th, 1995. I ran my car in the garage and was trying to kill myself with carbon monoxide. I was in there for 2.5 hours. Sometimes I was just sitting in the car listening to music. Sometimes I went out and just tried to breathe the carbon monoxide, the exhaust right out of the tailpipe of the car. And so I was in there for 2.5 hours. Started getting a really bad headache, my skin started to turn red and stuff, and 2.5 hours had gone by, and I was still alive. I was feeling kind of lightheaded, I knew my dad was going to be home soon. I was living with my dad at the time, and I didn't want him to come home and just see me there running my car in the garage still. So I turned off the car and waited for him to get back. And when he got back, I told him what happened, and they took me he drove me to the hospital, to Boulder Community Hospital. And they did a pulse ox, where they put the little thing on your finger that says how much oxygen's in your bloodstream, and it was down to 62%, which meant that 38% of my blood had bonded with the carbon monoxide instead of oxygen. And so from there, they took me to Presbyterian St. Luke's in Denver, which has a hyperbaric chamber, which is where they increase the atmospheric pressure. And so they pressurized it to below sea level with 100% pure oxygen. And then that was able to force the carbon monoxide out of my blood and supposedly prevent serious brain damage from occurring, although the carbon monoxide will, kill stuff regardless, but without the hyperbaric chamber, the brain damage would have been much worse. And so from there, I was able to, they asked me the next day if I wanted to go to a psychiatric unit, and I said no, and so I didn't have to. So then from there, I started going back to the school where I was at. I actually ended up going back to live with my mom in Fort Collins, and then I was driving to Boulder to the school I was at for the rest of the school year, which would have been until June 1995. And I started taking Zoloft. First time I took a Zoloft, I passed out for 2 hours, so I didn't take that for that long. I started taking Prozac, and it helped me for a while, although I started feeling kind of agitated and violent and stuff after a couple months of being on it, so I stopped taking it. In June of 1995, I ended up deciding to go to a psychiatric unit in Fort Collins, Colorado, the Evergreen Adolescent Ward at Poudre Valley Hospital. And so the first time I was there, I wasn't there for that long. It's kind of interesting. So then, through the summer of 1995, I was able to just pretty much just hang out and just kind of hang out in Fort Collins again, which I hadn't lived there for since 1992. So a lot of my friends, wasn't really in contact with them anymore. So anyway, then later on, I ended up starting back up to Fort Collins High School in the fall of 1995, and I was there for a little bit, and then I just kind of got depressed again. I drove up to this place along I-25. It's called Fort Rock or something like that. Just kind of like this natural rocky area, and just was there for a day, just kind of trying to think about things, and I hadn't told anybody where I was going. So then I went back to Fort Collins, and they had been concerned about me since I didn't say where I was going. So then I ended up going back to the Evergreen Ward in Fort Collins again, and I ended up meeting some cool people there. I saw the bad reaction that somebody had from Haldol, and that kind of got me thinking about the toxic effects of psychiatric medication. Started reading a book called Toxic Psychiatry by Peter Breggin. So anyway, yeah, I had found out about this Usenet news group called Alt Suicide Holiday. Usenet was kind of like a discussion group, back when the internet was first started going, when everybody was just having the text message, the screen, with just the old MS-DOS and just text and stuff like that. So anyway, there was kind of two major groups where people that had suicidal thoughts would hang out. There was one called Alt Support Depression, which was basically an interventionist type group. An interventionist is somebody that believes that you should always intervene on somebody who says they're suicidal, because it's 100% important, no matter what, that nobody ever kills themselves. And then there was the other group, Alt Suicide Holiday, which was basically a pro-choice suicide group. People should be free to talk about suicide, and that if they're not scared that somebody's going to intervene on them, and then they're going to have to go to a psych ward or something like that, which nobody psych wards are supposed to help people, but not everybody wants their whole life to be uprooted and then be locked in a ward and forced to take medication and stuff like that. So Alt Suicide Holiday was a pro-choice suicide group, and we did have a lot of problems sometimes with people. Into the interventionists liked to try and bother us a lot, and so a lot of people would just have the important discussions over emails, so that they wouldn't have to worry about being intervened on. I know for me, I felt like having the freedom to discuss suicide without worrying about being locked up. I think if I hadn't been able to do that, I probably would have killed myself. But the sad thing is when somebody does decide to kill themselves, from our point of view, it was sad, but then this was a choice that they made, and their choice should be respected. And we're just thankful that the time that we had to share with them with their life, and that we were able to get to know them as people, and be there for them, and let them have the freedom to make their own decisions. And So yeah, but it was really sad. I mean, I know one particular thing that was really sad for me was there was this guy, Andrew Kurtz, in 1996. I don't even remember where he lived at, but I had a lot of discussions with him about different things, and we talked. I knew he was planning on killing himself. We talked about things. I tried to say, like, well, are you sure this is what you want to do? And he said, yeah, and I respected that. And and he posted a lot of really interesting philosophical posts on Alt Suicide Holiday, like, imagine what the world would be like if you couldn't kill yourself. Imagine how horrible that would be if you were trapped here in an awful life and there was no way to escape from it. So the way he looked at it is like that, suicide is kind of like a safety valve or something, if it gets too bad, you can always just kill yourself, which is similar also to one of Leo Tolstoy's letter exchanges. You can find probably at the library, they have Leo Tolstoy's letters archived in books. And one of them was he was discussing suicide with this young lady from Russia, and then she was like, well, being a Christian, is it wrong for me to kill myself? And then he was like, well, it's not wrong, but killing, if God gave you the ability to do it, then it's not necessarily wrong. It's just that it's not necessarily gonna like end your consciousness. It might just transform your consciousness into something else. And is that going to be a positive thing or not? So anyway, she ended up saying, I guess, that her discussion, she felt that she decided not to kill herself because of that. So anyway, Andrew Kurtz, he ended up going out into the forest and blowing his brains out with a shotgun. And so anyway, after, I'm not sure where he lived at. I might have known at the time. I tried to look it up on the internet lately. I found his death record, but it didn't say what state that he was in, so I don't remember that. But after he killed himself, they went through his things, and they found his computer and my emails to him. And so his girlfriend ended up emailing me, and I'm not going to say her name to respect her privacy, but she was really upset, and we had a lot of conversations about what happened, and she said that she was just glad that I was there for him, and that was a really sad thing as far as the pro-choice suicide kind of thing. If you want to talk about suicide, if you need somebody to talk to, you can always contact me. that's about it for today, I think.